Hi there, and welcome back to the Energy Sector Heroes podcast. My name is Michelle Fraser, and every week I will speak with incredible people who share their lessons, experiences, and stories from their time spent in the energy sector. Hi there, and welcome back again to this week's episode. If you're new to the show, then please take a second to subscribe and even consider sharing the show with just one other person. This week, I am joined by Laurent Pagnon. Laurent is the head of group strategy at SGS, which is a new job for Laurent, actually. Laurent, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. Thank you for having me and hosting. Yes, so Laurent Pagnon, I'm French. I'm the husband and the father of 3 children. I've lived in the US for the past 6 years. And we are just moving with the whole family to Switzerland for a new, adventure in a new company, as you said, called SGS. So I've been just in my first week in my new job. So quite a change. And yeah, I've had the career starting in 2008. So it's been 17 years for now. And I'm really happy, excited to, join you for this podcast, Michelle.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you here as well. So what made you decide to go into the energy sector?
Yeah, so I had an engineering background. I've been doing my master in energy. So I've been, dedicating last 2-3 years of my master into the energy field, looking after energy sources from I would say, physical and kind of scientific standpoint, but as well more on the side of economics and finance. And I've found it, really fascinating, the world of energy and how it is impacting societies overall and our, economic perspective. And so, yeah, after my master diploma, I decided that I wanted to enter, the energy sector. And I wanted as well, essentially, to go and work abroad. So leave France, my home country. And so found an opportunity at Total Energies, which has been my first employer. And I started actually in Qatar and Abu Dhabi in the Middle East as an engineer at Total Energies.
Okay, so what made you progress through the ranks to become senior management? Did you find it easy?
I'm not sure this has been something that I planned, at the beginning. I think I started my career as many engineers, essentially nothing really different than any other engineer you have working day to day on the field. However, what had happened is that, after 18 months, I had something developing, within me that I didn't want to stay an engineer for too long. It was not really exactly where I was having a lot of fun and when I was thinking that, I'm learning the things I should learn. And so after 18 months, in this job, I moved back to Paris at Total Energies headquarters. And I really started to think, this is not what I want to do for the next 10, 15, 20 years. But that started with this first experience, which wasn't a bad experience. It was not just, I think, as fulfilling as I wanted. And I asked myself at this time, what do you want to do? What could be fun for you? What is really something that's going to, drive your engagement and motivation every day? And something that was really, appealing to me was a bit more the field of strategy. And I would say more, financial as well domain. And as I was an engineer, it was not obvious for me, to move to that strategy field, essentially. And then I decided to say, okay, I want to shift my career 180 degrees. And I started to look for an opportunity into strategy consulting because I had this insatisfaction. And I think that was a big driver, behind my first decision in change, being unsatisfied of what you do and taking a decision that you want to change. That was a little bit what happened.
Okay. Did you find it easy to climb the career ladder, and do you really think that it's important to follow a path that you enjoy rather than a strategic strategy?
So yeah, if we come back to your original question, a little bit on, climbing the ranks and progressing your career. As I said, it never was the purpose to begin with. So the first step was enter strategy. And having 4 years in strategy consulting, started, as you said, to work as a junior, then as a consultant, then as a senior. So you already have to have these steps, Michelle, that we were mentioning, climbing the ranks within the strategy field at Mars & Co, my employer, which is a strategy consulting firm in France. And that was mostly natural progression in consulting. You always kind of climb the ladder relatively progressively. Some people faster than others, obviously, depending on your performance, I would say. I was, I guess, not a bad performer. And I had this opportunity in 4 years to climb 2, 3 ranks in this company. And this is when I started to think, okay, you are starting to touch, a little bit management level position. You have a team of 3, 4 people. What do you want to do next? That was again, this question that came back because after 4 years, I realized, okay, I've learned a lot, but I start to stagnate a little bit in my journey, in my development. And if I stay in this consulting firm, I'm not, may not go higher for a long time. And that has been more a driver for me to continue my growth. And this is when I made the decision to leave this strategy consulting company, Morsinco, and enter into, at the time, a company called Technip that became Technip FMC as essentially corporate development or group strategy manager. So I started to think a little bit more as, I'd say, becoming senior management at this point of time. When I starting to have these 2, 3 steps at Mars & Co, I started to realize, okay, where are you heading? What do you want to do? Do we really want to become senior management? Because the responsibility that go with it have an impact on your life, on your family, on certain things. And this is really at that moment where I decided, yep, you know what? I want to have a shot if I can. Try to stay always a bit down to earth as well, because you can go up but down pretty quickly as well. So yeah, that happened, I would say around this time, 2013, 14, when I started to think, okay, I may have a kind of senior management career.
Okay. Does it fulfill you having a senior management career? How do you deal with all the responsibilities?
I think, when I look back at myself, at my career, I think I always had two main drivers in my career on why am I doing that. The first one that is I really enjoy being either taking the decision or influencing to take the right decisions, because you are very rarely, the one making the decision. But you could be a key player, key influencer in the decision-making process. And that has been always something that I've been looking forward to, and I think when I look back, this is where I really enjoy the most my work, and when I can see that I have this impact, this influence, and that we are making the right decisions at the company. So that has been one big driver. And the second, another big driver has been simply learning. I've always tried to learn new things. And every 2 years, after doing the same job, I usually start to get a little bit bored. And this is when I'm quickly thinking, okay, I need a change. I need to do something else. I need to learn new things, new competencies. Could be a new, I'd say, business line. I always need something to learn in my role to be able as well to enjoy and have, this fulfillment. So these two drivers, making decisions or influencing the decisions and learning, were really for me the two big drivers in my career and development.
Okay, so is it important to have a job that you learn and you enjoy as well?
At least for me, it is everything. It is everything to come to the office every day by still having to learn. If you come to the office, and that's very personal. Again, there is no one recipe that you could apply to everybody, but I've always found myself much more happier, if I come to the office and I know I still have tons of things to learn, discover. That is much more fun for me. The journey is much more appealing. And when you start to be in a comfort zone, when you start to really know your job super well, the business, you start to master it, in and out. At least to me, it removes a lot of the fun that you have to go to the office and go to your work. But some people are more in an expertise kind of career path or technical career path, and they know it all kind of. And they take a lot of, I'd say, fun at teaching, teaching, educating others, influencing others in their field of expertise, but they are not learning every day. So I don't think this is something everybody should target, but at least for me, it has been really something that I've noticed that, yeah, when I start to know too much things, too much in a comfort zone, this is where I have much less fun, Yeah.
Okay, and I do agree with that. But is it important to move outside your comfort zone?
I think if you want to aim for a senior management career, if you want to aim for transformation project, things that have an impact, you will be out of your comfort zone. It's very rare where you can really stay in your comfort zone and be involved in big transforming activities, at least in my mind. I really see that something that is important for your development, that is challenging your ability as well to absorb new things. It's challenging your ability to rebound, and really to develop yourself. So I see that as something important, at least in my career, to help me grow, be challenged. Don't be in your comfort zone, because if you handle that, you unlock a new gear, a new possibilities for your career and development. And when you stay too long in your comfort zone, usually you don't unlock these possibilities or new gears. So you could be in the comfort zone for a while, but not for too long in my mind, because then you stagnate, you stop evolving, and it's difficult then to go back on this path of being a little bit uneasy and, in doubtful situation where you don't know, when you've been for too long in a comfort zone, in my mind.
Okay, so how do you know when you're ready to move up a level, maybe from senior engineer?
Usually, I don't know that. So usually an opportunity come and you say yes or no. Usually you say yes, and then it's scary and you're not sure if you are ready. And at least for me, that's the way it is. I cannot say I have this unwavering kind of mentality or mindset where I know I'm going to do it. I know I'm the right person. I don't have this confidence that I'll be successful. That's for me. Usually the opportunity comes. I say yes or no. I say yes. And then there is a phase where you're a bit scared and you go through it. But I have enough confidence in myself that I think your employer is not going to put you in a position where you will not succeed. If an employer, which is i.e. a management team, management structure, is deciding on a talent to put that person, he or she, in a new role that is I'd say, a kind of vertical move, it's because the management believe firmly you can be successful. And I'm always telling myself, if they think I can do it, why shouldn't I think that I can do it? So I have this confidence that I can do it, but it's not something that is unchallengeable. It doesn't mean I'm not scared. It means, oh, holy shit, I'm scared. It's a new step. But I still have this, I would say, lifeline where I'm telling myself, there's no reason why you can do it. And if you can, that's okay. You still have the trust of the people. You're going to take more time. You can, I have that, but not too much self-confidence that I believe, I'm the best, I'm going to deliver, and then I'm going to go to the next step. It's not like that for me, at least.
Okay, but then do you work with a plan with your manager? And how do you show your manager that you're a really good talent that deserves to be pushed forward to promotion?
So there are two aspects, I think, in your question. One is more, do you work with your manager on a development plan?
Mm.
And second, more, how do you show that you could be the right person? Which are, I'd say, two different topics. On the first one, I've never really had any kind of IDP, individual development plan, agreed with my manager where you are on this path and you have certain actions or things you'd like to tick on your bucket list to go to the next step and that's going to unlock certain, I never had that. However, I think what's more important than an IDP is to have the right discussions on your career, i.e., what are your gaps? What are your strengths? And if you have gaps, make sure you work on these gaps. I can, share an example. A gap could be you were never exposed to customers. That's a gap. If you want to become a senior leader, an executive committee member, or whoever, whatever, you need to have much more client exposure. Okay, clear gap. It's super important. How can I get myself much more exposed to clients? Because I'm not in a client facing role. I can take on some projects that involve clients typically. So that's one example of a gap and you work on it. So it's not an IDP, it's not the usual development plan, but I think what you need to have is a relationship with your manager where you have enough, I'd say, trust in each other that you can openly share these gaps, talk about these gaps, and make sure that on a regular basis, you check in on the gaps and you discuss that. And then you can have a good discussion, which is, okay, we've highlighted a few things 18 months ago, 2 years ago. I've worked on that. We've done that together. I've been exposed to this and that. And to me, that's, this link, this openness, and I would say trust with your manager is more important than any IDP you could develop and, okay, sanction my IDP, I'm going to work on it. And then there is more the other aspect of what you ask, which is, how do you show the things? And I think to me, trust is always coming from delivering the results. I think the most important things at the end of the day is to deliver, to show what you've done. And usually it's not doing your job. Usually it's the little things that are beyond your job. It's the little thing that you are being asked to do that are not your job. An example, you report, to the president of the business, and there's another business line that comes to you and asks, Laurent, I'm deep shit. I need someone to help me on this organization thing. Would you be able to help me? You're not my boss. I'm busy. And, I'm sorry, but, I have 3 kids. I have this and that. I'm not going to do it. This is where you should say yes. You should say, I'm going to help you. I'm going to support you. And I'm going to show you what I can deliver. Because usually what gets you your next opportunity is not your boss. It's the peer level of your boss that raise their hand and say, I know this guy. I know this woman. She can deliver. I've worked with her. She was outside her comfort zone. She helped me. I trust her. That's powerful. Not your boss, but someone else at peer level that can back you up. Discussion in a succession planning discussion or some, I've worked with that person, even though we are not related directly in our day to day. He or she helped me a ton on that topic, and I know that person can deliver. That's super important to, give you the next step you want.
Okay, so it's important to volunteer to take on tasks out with your job description to get ahead, especially if it's relating to other peers that you're not directly working with.
Yes, I think at least that has been my experience. Doing your job and exceeding expectation is not enough. When you start to go higher and higher, that's expected out of kind of most of the leadership teams. So what's moving the needle in your direction is going to be all these little things. I say little, but they could be big, but all these things outside your job, where you're going to build your network, build your relationship based out of what you deliver. We are not talking about having a relationship with someone because you are running together or, because you have, whatever. We are really talking here, build your network based on things you deliver that are not your job. That's how you build a network of trust on people that can back you up in, succession planning discussion. because they just not know you on a personal basis. They know you on what you can do and deliver at work. And that's for me, at least, how it has worked in my career. It has been all the things I've done for different senior leaders that ultimately, were rewarding in terms of career.
Okay, so it's important to be able to network, not even just with your company, but within your company for direct senior management then.
Yeah, very much. And I think people think of, I'd say, networking more as meeting other people, discussing with the right persons, selling yourself. But the most efficient way to sell yourself is by showing what you can do. So typically in my management style and within my team, I'm always trying to have people outside my team helping my team because that's a great way to assess someone when you look at your talent pipeline and look at who could take over this, strategy director position or investment manager. It's always good to have, kind of talent pipeline that you've tested few people. Oh, we have business case starting. Could you help? So first, people who say no, usually say, okay, the motivation is not there. Okay, good. People who say yes, then you involve them. You can see what they're able to do. And that's always for me as well. The way I'm, managing is by involving people outside my direct team to gauge people's ability essentially to deliver the work and be outside the comfort zone and see something different, and you see how they react and how they can perform the work in a non-standard environment because it's not their direct work. I like to do that. It has proven for me great as well, with senior leaders to do the things. And I'm trying as well in my leadership style to do that as much as I can.
Okay. So what advice would you have to any new graduates coming into the energy sector?
Ah, wow. Takes me back 17 years ago. I think something that has been really important for me, especially in energy, is to have the curiosity to really be interested in the energy markets. You have to know basic things like what's the, oil and gas output, what is the global energy demand worldwide, what are the main primary energies, what are the main, I'd say, players and actors, political actors in the energy domain. This kind of curiosity to just not do your job, but understand your ecosystem. I think I've met too many people that are absolutely not knowledgeable on their ecosystem. And if you want to have, I would say, kind of leadership path, leadership career, and go to the senior management positions, this business acumen around energy is critical. And I've had so many interviews, with candidates who wants to enter corporate development teams typically that have no business acumen on energy. And I'm always thinking, oh wow, you are not curious, you don't want to know, you're not reading whatever newspaper, online kind of newsletters you could have access to just to really understand the business. So I think, it's not because you're an engineer working on, I don't know, mechanical stuff, that you shouldn't be interested in your company, in the energy sector, and try to learn these things. So if I had one advice, I would say, for young graduates is have the curiosity to build a business acumen that can help you your entire career if you want to have, again, a leadership career and senior management path.
Okay, and that is really good advice. That takes me on to the next question. If you were going to interview, say, a new graduate, what qualities would you look for?
So it depends on the position, obviously, that you interview for. But I think if I'm thinking out loud here when I'm interviewing, I'm mostly interviewing, fortunately, for managers, directors positions, so not necessarily for graduates position anymore. But I think something I'm always looking forward is the ability of the interviewee to adapt to not expected questions in an interview or non-expected kind of test in an interview. How do you react? Self-composure, stress management. So I'm always having an interview, different parts. One is usually a business case. And in advance, I'm telling the interviewee, you're going to have a business case. You know what a business case is? Yeah, I know. Okay, so prepare yourself. That's the first part of an interview. Usually, second part is a presentation. I'm asking, the interviewee to present to me a couple of slides of their choice so that they are in a comfort zone. But I'm telling them, please present it as you would present it to the CEO. How would you do that? Present that to me as I would be the CEO. And then I have a third part of the interview, which is a regular interview. And I'm doing that because I want to know how they handle unexpected things that's going to come up in this thought process when they're presenting the way they're thinking about a business case. And I'm going to challenge them with awkward questions or try to make them think a little bit beyond. And how do they manage that stress just to be, under scrutiny with questions they were not expecting? And I think to me, that's quality number one. Handling stress, handling the unexpected, adaptability during the interview. Because you could sell yourself, prepare yourself for an interview like crazy, have a super good solid pitch on who you are. But that's not what matters to me. What matters is, okay, we're going to have a stressful case, high pace with tight deadline. How do you react to that? Are you able to still be okay? That's what I'm looking for, with a new, I'd say, candidate, is that thing. Yeah.
Okay. And that is really interesting as well. For a younger audience, what is a business case?
It's pretty simple. A business case is essentially assessing a business opportunity. So it could be an investment in a company. It could be an investment in a manufacturing plant. It could be an R&D program, and you need a business case to justify you need R&D money. Typically, a business case could be something as simple as, I'd say, more a guesstimate. Like, recently I asked, what is the business size of the refining business in China? Okay, it's a kind of business case to assess the size of the refining industry in China. And I'd like to see how you think about it. What's your method? What's your thought process? So a business case is simply say just assessing an opportunity, and you have different methods, different way of doing it, different type of cases, but it's as simple and broad as that, Michelle. So it's quite broad, but you could narrow down different type of business case, but that's very broad.
Yeah, but that would be, I mean, I know a lot of graduates would have a long time before they would have to present a business case, but that could be daunting to even the most senior person, though, to be able to do that.
At the end of the day, when you are at that C-level, what you're being asked a lot is assess these business opportunities. It's not just about P&L management and operations. Okay, you'll have a good team below you that can handle operations. What you're being asked as a leader is to make the right decisions on where to invest. At the end of the day, it's about growth, it's about profitability. So it's about most of the time a business case. And a good share, I'd say, of leaders do not have that ability. And for me, it's usually red flag when you are meeting a high level business leaders who does not really understand the business case and how to drive future business opportunities. At least it tells me, red flag, there's a problem here, because that should be part of his or her job to be able to do that.
Okay. But how do you deliver a business case successfully then?
So look, I think the realm of the theory that we do in an interview, and then there is the true, I would say, business opportunities where you're going to have different phases. You're going to look at your rationale for the business case. What's the strategy here? Why do we want to do it? You're going to have a kind of first gate where you're going to challenge a lot the strategic rationale of the case. And if you pass that gate, because it makes sense more from I would say, a strategy perspective, then there's usually a second gate, which is more financial. Like, okay, we have a good case, but what are the financial metrics? Do I have a good return? What you are always considering in any business case is essentially your financial return, so return on investment. You have different type of return you could assess, but bottom line, you need a return. So you are not going to invest any money if the return is not here. So that's usually kind of gate number 2. Validate that from a financial standpoint, yeah, you have that. And then usually there is a kind, you execute a due diligence, whatever you call it, you're going to go through, long list of things to check before making any investment. If we talk about R&D, it's not due diligence, it's going to be typically a concept paper. You validate that you have a good idea that makes sense, that then you have a business case, i.e., do I have a market for my new idea? Do I have clients for my new idea? Yes, you have a kind of concept paper that makes sense. Then you need to do everything. So, if you talk about investing in a company, it's going to be more due diligence of the company. But usually you have these steps for any type of investment in business case.
Okay. Interesting. And I think it would be quite interesting to present a business case. So, what do you enjoy most about your job then?
I think one of the privilege and thing that I really enjoy in my job is really the diversity of the people I'm meeting. I think when I had the opportunity to travel in the US, but I could travel to Brazil, to Norway, to India, to meet employees, that is always a very special moment, at least for me. I'm always taking the time typically to lunch with new talents and key talent of any country or any facility I'm visiting, because I take a lot of joy at having this lunch meeting with key talents, typically to talk about career, talk about certain things they want to discuss. There is never, I'd say, an agenda that is being defined in this discussion with talents. Always an open discussion. I try not to prepare myself. That's why as well I was looking forward to this podcast, Michelle, because I take, a lot of joy in having this discussion. And if I'm really thinking on what I enjoyed a lot is this opportunity I have to meet people worldwide and people that are very different from who I am. And then you can hire these different people. I can have in my team people from India, people from Brazil, Norwegian, I have US person. I mean, you discover the way they think is different than your way. And that's super rich. And that's why, it's kind of one of the big joy for me. And it's not every day, as you imagine, because I'm not traveling every day. I'm traveling, every month or 2 months, you go here and there. But I'm always looking forward to it because of the people I'm going to meet. So that is something, honestly, what I have a lot of joy is to meet these diverse kind of people. And that's super rich. And I'm always very thankful and grateful to meet people.
Okay, that's a really positive note that I'm going to end in. I think that's all the questions I have today. I would like to thank Laurent for your time. That brings us to the end of another episode. Thanks for listening and see you next week. That brings us to the end of another episode. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, I'd like to gently encourage you to leave a 5-star rating wherever you listen to podcasts and share the show with another person. You can also follow me on LinkedIn or via my website, www.michellefraserconsultancy.com. Thanks again for listening and see you next week.